Hello, I'm Penelope Ferguson. I'm a registered dietitian and a certified GAPS practitioner. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues that are also certified GAPS practitioner. And this is one of a series of videos regarding the GAPS diet. GAPS stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome and Gut and Physiology Syndrome. So today I have with me Gina Phelps, who is a certified GAPS practitioner and a nutrition therapy practitioner, and Mary Lynn Lipscomb, who is certified GAPS practitioner and a registered nurse with extra certification in holistic health. Mary Lynn.
Well, I thought it would be a good idea today to perhaps share with you our story about why each of us got interested in this particular protocol, especially since Penelope is a registered dietitian, Gina's a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I'm a holistic nurse. And to hopefully help you understand our journey as we have come down the road in our professional lives and changed a lot of the ways we have viewed health and viewed our pathway to health. Personally, I have been a nurse since 1983. I've had a private practice since 1999, and over the past almost 15 years, I have been working diligently with people to help them restore and recover their health and to address some of their chronic issues. And through that time, I began to understand that there was often a very central area that bothered people, and that seemed to almost always be aspects of their digestive system. Now, sometimes they would have complaints of headaches or sleeplessness or fatigue or allergies. And I came to know through some specialized testing that I was able to do with a computerized system that there, 9 times out of 10, that assessment would reveal issues with the gastrointestinal tract. So because of that, in 2007, I attended a conference called the Weston A. Price Foundation Conference, and I heard at that conference Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride speak about GAPS, Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And she literally put the pieces of a puzzle together for me at that conference, in that she explained the aspects of gut health, starting from the moment of birth and coming forward through life, and what can damage the gut flora and how the microbes are such an integral part of health. And she helped me understand that a major core of health is, as I was suspecting and as my computer assessment was revealing, the gut. And so from that vantage point, I determined to become a certified GAPS practitioner and then to turn focus on healing the gut so that many symptoms could be addressed based on that approach. So that's just a very short version of my story. I think also Gina and Penelope will share with you their story.
Well, my story, Mary, starts out, I was trained in ultrasound technology back in the late 70s. And I spent quite a few years working in the hospitals looking at the physiology of the body and why did the organs go bad. And nobody really talked about those kinds of things. They really just wanted to know how to make it better or take it out. So as I progressed in that part of my career, I had children at that point, and I started seeing allergies and issues with their digestive system. And I didn't ever put allergies and digestion together. It was always kind of a, why are they sick? Why do they have earaches? A lot of questions about that. Same thing for myself. Why am I developing adult allergies? I never had them before. Why do I have them now? So fast forward years of homeschooling and teaching anatomy to my children and their friends, and teaching health classes in that environment. And I started learning more and more, and kind of looking at the paradigm of my education and saying, this doesn't make sense to what I had been taught years ago. Back in the early 2000s, I also attended a Weston A. Price conference and started hearing things about traditional foods and cultured foods that made such an impact on me. So I came home and I started making the traditional foods and learning about bone broth and making that in my family, and sauerkraut and kombucha and different things that we've talked about over this series. A few years later, I decided to take a class called the Certified Healing Food Specialist class, and I actually learned how to do this and to teach that. And from that, I ended up becoming a nutritional therapy practitioner. So in my focus of clients now, I work with digestion and putting all the pieces of mental health and digestive health and joint health and female hormone and male hormonal changes, and really narrowing it down that it really all these issues start in the gut. And through that, I then was introduced to Dr. Natasha and became a certified GAPS practitioner. So that's kind of my journey. And Penelope, would you like to share yours?
Well, I have many aspects that are the same as you ladies. I am a registered dietitian. I've been critical care support credentials, and I've taken tens of thousands of diet history from people. And some people are sick for this reason and that reason. But I was also figuring out that it ended up being the foods they ate and their digestive health, and also how old they were. I mean, I don't mean ancient, I mean age, but the fact that were they raised on a farm? Did they have traditional foods, or were they the fast food people? So over time, I was searching, and so I started to go to several traditional foods conferences. And this past summer, I went to one, and it had not Dr. Natasha, but it had a GAPS practitioner, and they said, "Who in here are GAPS people?" And I'm thinking, what are they talking about? And then as I sat and went through the conference and went through the lectures, like, oh my gosh, I know what this is. I can teach this. This is where I need to be. And so I immediately applied and went through the credentials to become a certified GAPS practitioner. So I have seen everything at the bedside in a hospital. And then I have my own family, which were never ill. Well, because we ate traditional foods. I made my bone broth. We had homemade bread. We had our own homemade sauerkraut and so many other things. I live not far from someone named Joel Salatin. So my children never had anything but organic. We didn't even call it organic. That was the local farmer we got our things from. So anyhow, I can tell a difference in my health, and I can tell a difference as I've talked to other people over the last many, many years. And so coming back to traditional foods, and one of the little quips of life is you are what you eat. Well, if you eat fast food, you're going to have a fast life and maybe not a healthy life. So working towards traditional foods and recognizing that some of the science that has been delivered to us over the years may not have been as accurate as they had interpreted. So getting back to traditional foods and cooking from the kitchen and from your heart is the way to be. And I've been writing, and I'm a food and health writer, and I've always promoted home-based foods. So I'm going to toss it back over to Mary Lynn, and we're going to go through a few slides, and then we're going to explain why we have food in front of us.
Well, as Penelope said, we have a table full of food, and we're going to be talking about these meals that we have in front of us. We have sample breakfast, lunch, and dinner from something called the Full GAPS Diet. Now, just to briefly introduce you to the GAPS diet, which again, GAPS stands for Gut and Psychology or Physiology Syndrome. There are actually two versions of this diet. What's known as the Full GAPS diet and the Introduction GAP diet. The Full GAPS diet is very, very nourishing. You're going to love it. So this is not a diet that most people find to be strict in the terms of very limited. It has very rich, nutrient-dense food. So let me share with you some of the aspects of this diet, just to reintroduce you to some of the concepts that we have covered in previous episodes. We told you in an earlier episode that all diseases begin in the gut, and this is not our quote, this is Hippocrates, the father of medicine, reminding us that his belief was all disease begin in the gut, and we certainly agree with that. This syndrome establishes a connection between the state of the health of the gut and the health of the rest of the body, whether that be the brain or whether that be the other organs and tissues of the body. To clarify what we mean, when we say gut, we're not talking about necessarily just the abdomen. We are talking about the entire gastrointestinal tract, starting at the mouth and going all the way to the exit or the anus of the body. In this slide, you're going to see some of the organs that make up the gastrointestinal tract, and in the the corner there, you will see a magnification that shows the microbes that inhabit the lining of the gut. We are very focused on these microbes because these microbes literally stand between us and chronic disease. And so we want to nourish these microbes. We want to take care of these microbes, especially the beneficial ones. And we want to try to make them as healthy as possible so that the gut wall is healthy. And so that is why when we talk about the foods that we're going to have in front of us, we'll talk about foods that are fermented, that are cultured, that are prepared in a very specific way so that it nourishes these microbes and can repair and nourish the gut wall. This is just another slide that shows a magnification of the gut wall, and you will notice that it has a lot to do with the immune system as well. And so this is where autoimmune disorders and allergies come into play when there is a tear, a break, a leakiness in this gut wall, whereby foreign proteins, toxins, and other things may escape this barrier and into the bloodstream, and that will set off a cascade of symptoms that can then end up being very inflammatory in the body. So, once again, we did cover some of these concepts in an earlier episode. What can damage this gut wall? I certainly learned as a practitioner that there were many things that could do damage to the gut wall. First of all, when a baby is born and inherits the normal flora from mother, parents, the environment, that flora is generally healthy if the mother is healthy and if the father is healthy. And this is not a genetic inheritance. This is a transmission at birth through the birth canal. So what can damage that gut flora right off the bat is to, number one, have been transmitted an unhealthy flora, and then that gut flora to have been attacked or diminished by antibiotics and other things. So what can happen when the gut wall is damaged? All sorts of problems can ensue, and the slide that I showed just previously gives you some idea as to how that can happen. So we're going to just talk a little bit about some of the healing foods, the nourishing foods, the GAPS foods that may be included in the full GAPS diet. And these are foods that may also be included in the introductory GAPS diet. But these are what we consider the superfoods, the healing foods. And so one of the things that is a basis of the GAPS diet is meat stock, fish stock. And this is a very, very nourishing food. I'm going to ask my colleagues if they will just chime in a bit about stock and broth and bone broth and some of the healing aspects of this particular food.
Well, bone broth and meat stock is very ancient. In China, they call it longevity soup. And they would use the fish stock, they would add algae to it, and other things so that they would enhance the nutrition, the nutrients and the nutrition from it. I'm imagining caveman had some kind of a bone broth and so on because they wanted to get every little bit of nutrition out of what they've just caught. I mean, we have the luxury of going to a supermarket, and right now we're not hunter and gatherers. Now we need to be fighting off what is in the supermarket. So anyhow, to me, the bone broth is the basis, and you don't just have it once a month. It's 2 or 3 times a day, or several times a week as you're making your stews, as you're cooking your green beans. Maybe you're not going to cook them in just boiling water, but you're going to have them seasoned with your own homemade chicken stock and so on. Gina, how do you use it?
Well, we use it every morning. It becomes a substitute for coffee in our family, and that warm, nourishing drink, and adding some special sea salt or Himalayan salt to it, give it some more wonderful mineral properties. And We also use it before our meals. You'll see one of our meals, a couple of our meals today are going to include having the bone broth as a digestive property that will help the food digest faster than it would if it was just sitting there normally.
Let's move on and just talk a little bit about the other foods that might be included in the Full Gaps diet. And I told you were going to love it. Well, look at the nutrient-dense and nourishing animal products that are part of this Full Gaps diet. These fats and the muscle tissue as well provide some of the best nutrients for healing that is included in the GAPS protocol. And so what you see is you'll see meats such as chicken, beef, pork, and of course fish would be included in it. And it is important to point out that the health of the animal is very important in the introduction of animal fats and animal meats into the diet. You definitely want an animal that is pasture raised, that has not been given antibiotics or hormones, and if they are fed supplemental feeds, those feeds should be GMO free. So the most natural, healthy diet that the animal can consume is very important when animal fats are part of any diet, really. And not only the fat, but also the bones, the marrow, the connective tissue are very highly prized in the GAPS plan. So what else do you have to say about fats, meats, animal products in the diet?
Well, I can address that. In the beginning, we had the animal fats, and when you get a piece of meat, you'll notice that it's solid white, and the fat would be solid white and structurally sound and firm. Well, then we got into some questionable research, and someone decided that saturated or animal fats were no longer good for us. And then they moved into an area called polyunsaturated fats or oils, polyunsaturated oils, and that was the way to go. So here we have liquid oils going into our bodies which need to be structurally sound. And so these oils have gotten into our cell system, which is foreign to our cell systems. Our cells need to have strength and firmness to them. So that when you look at people that were large in older days, they were solidly large. And now today, because of a bunch of different reasons, but one of the other reasons is that these polyunsaturated oils are not giving our bodies that structure. We're animals and we need animal fat. We need animal to animal on how we best eat and so on. So getting back to traditional diets and traditional foods is where we need to be going right now, and staying away from the fast foods, the refined flours, refined pastries and things like that. Those do need to get out of the diet, but what needs to come back into the diet are the traditional foods, the meats, the fats, egg yolks, real butter, and so on.
I was just going to add, we take it a little bit further at our home, and we actually have our own chickens that are laying their eggs in their coop. We do feed them a non-genetically modified feed. They run free in our yard. They do go in their coop in the evening. We raised our own. You'll see the meal that I have in front of me has a broiler that we raised in our backyard this summer. And then further out in the backyard, we have a whole group of pigs. Right now, they're getting ready to deliver with some little babies that are running around. But we will bring them to full weight, and they become part of our freezer for the winter. So we've really taken it very seriously that we need to know where our meat's coming from, the quality. Our pigs are getting sunshine, which turns around that their lard has high quality vitamin D, which is so important for our bodies. And so we're having fun. We're experimenting on our little hobby farm.
That is so important. I'm so glad you included that, Gina, because I think more and more people are really interested in knowing where their food comes from, and one of the best ways to do that is to raise it yourself. Butter, we all love it. We all use it. It is recommended in the Full GAPS diet, and so it should be consumed regularly and liberally in the Full GAPS diet. Not only that, but cream, lard, sour cream, coconut oil, nut butters, olive oil. So fats from healthy animals are a very important part of this diet. Certainly fruits and vegetables are included in the full GAPS diet. Now, if you pay attention to this image, you will see a couple of foods that are not included in the GAPS diet. Not that they're not healthy foods, but the corn and the potatoes and the grains and some of the legumes or dried beans that you see here are not part of the GAPS diet. That they could become part of your diet once the gut is healed. But these are foods that are withdrawn from the diet temporarily. So having talked about some of the foods in the full GAPS diet, let's go to the food that's on the table and talk a little bit about that so we can just see what we're going to be eating here. And I'll start with breakfast, and I'll show you what a GAPS breakfast might look like. What I have here on the plate is a delicious GAPS breakfast, and I have an omelet made with eggs from chickens in my backyard, and it has green peppers and onions. It has raw milk cheese, and then just to give it a little flavor, I just put a little bit homemade hot sauce on top of it. You see over here sauerkraut, homemade sauerkraut, simply made with cabbage and culture and some sausage from pastured pork. I also have yogurt. If you want to flavor the yogurt with a little bit of raw honey, you could certainly drizzle that on. I have the bone broth as a beverage, and then this is a kefir smoothie made with peaches and kefir and a little bit of honey. And so that's my GAPS breakfast.
Wonderful.
Well, as a dietitian, let me comment on that. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and whoever came out with don't eat egg yolks, unfortunately it was wrong. So to have a hearty breakfast with eggs is just fine. To get local pasteurized local pastured raised cattle that, you know, you've got your milk, and your milk products are wonderful. So you have a hearty breakfast that's going to last you throughout the morning and into noon. You're not going to be snacking and picking, and I need to get something else, and I'm going to go to the snack machine. No, you have got a solid, hearty breakfast that will last all morning with you. It looks
Penelope,
delicious.
you're next. What do you have for us today?
Well, I have lunch. I only brought a part of my thing. I have homemade chili with, let me move this, excuse me. I have homemade chili, and it's got bone broth as part of it. I have chicken bits in there. I had, for my bone broth, I had to pick off the chicken and things like that. And instead of being kidney beans in here, they're the white beans. And so the white beans are a GAPS-friendly food, whereas kidney beans in the beginning are not. The interesting thing about the GAPS diet and what you do with chili is you take, I have homemade soured cream. I've gone to a local dairy and gotten sour cream, or cream, and then I have cultured it and made it sour, and then you swirl it together in your hot soup, and that's part of your meal. And then I'm finishing it off with bread. I have GAPS-friendly bread. It does not have any wheat in or any grains in. It's ground almonds, eggs, and that's it, ground almonds and eggs. And it ends up, and a little bit of baking soda to make it rise, and it's actually quite lovely bread. I can make sandwiches out of it, and it actually tastes like bread. I mean, you can make sandwiches and BLTs and so on. And so anyhow, this is my GAPS-friendly lunch.
And I have a GAPS-friendly dinner. As I was mentioning before, we have a chicken. There's a wonderful GAPS-friendly cookbook called Internal Bliss. This is a lemon thyme chicken that I roasted. We have winter squashes are a big part of the GAPS diet to get the carbohydrates in there. We're taking all the grains out, but we still need the carbs for our body from good winter squashes. So this is butternut squash that's been pureed with butter. We also have fermented Summer squash and onions. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely delicious. The ladies tried it earlier and it was just delicious. And then I have something which is really fun. It's called a cauliflower biscuit. And I've used ground cauliflower and some almond flour, and I got that from a website called Fast Paleo, so thank you for that recipe. And so many recipes that we've used that are non-dairy, non-grain, non-sugar-free can be found in different types of, it doesn't have to be a traditional website. It doesn't have to be a GAPS website. It can be a paleo website or a primal website, or just somebody that's careful to consider using traditional foods and real foods for their diet. We did bring some dessert today, and the dessert is just a wonderful dried blueberries, dried cherries, and some nuts and coconut.
We want to thank you for joining us today. We would like for you to know that you can reach us at gapsguides@gmail.com, as well as at www.gaps.me. All of our contact information will be on that website. We would love to hear from you. So again, gapsguides@gmail.com, www.gaps.me. Thank you for joining us today.